On October 20th, 2020, I had a conversation over Zoom with composer Judith Shatin. Her music includes chamber, choral and orchestral, electronic, electroacoustic, and multimedia, combining an adventurous approach to timbre with dynamic narrative design. Her imagination is sparked by her multiple fascinations with literature and the visual arts, with the sounding world, both natural and built, and with the social and communicative power of music. She has received numerous commissions and awards, and her music has been widely performed and recorded. Shatin is Professor Emerita at the University of Virginia, where she founded the renowned Virginia Center for Computer Music. Zamir was to have performed Hark My Love, Shatin's beautiful setting of verses from the Song of Songs, but the coronavirus forced us to shut down rehearsals. So we will play a recording by a guest choir, the Laudibus Choir, conducted by Michael Brewer. Listen for the excitement in the opening phrases, the musical interpretation of the lover leaping like a young deer, then the legato yearning of the lovers. After the recording, stay tuned for my full-length interview with the composer. We are pleased and honored to have with us today the renowned composer Judith Shatin. Welcome, Judith.
Thank you so much.
Judith, you composed a number of pieces with Jewish content, shall we say. What inspired you to do that?
That's an interesting question. What inspired me? Different kinds of things. First of all, although I do not come from a very religious background in my parents' generation, my paternal grandparents were immigrants from Eastern Europe. My father's first language was Yiddish, although to my regret, I did not learn it growing up. So I've always felt a strong connection. I'm very drawn to to a great deal of literature, to biblical verse. I've said a number of Psalms. I have also, through my husband, who is, well, he has a complicated story too, but he's a dual Israeli-American citizen. And he taught me a beautiful melody by his paternal grandfather, which isn't, as far as we can tell, written down anywhere. And I was commissioned by the Pittsburgh Jewish Music Festival with support from the LA Commission on Jewish Music to compose a piece celebrating the high holidays, Rosh Hashanah in particular. And this melody came from that kind of celebration. So I did a piece called Teruah for shofar, brass ensemble, and timpani. So, I'm drawn to many different kinds of things, but music with a Jewish spiritual connection certainly forms an important theme in my music. I also did a piece called Elijah's Chariot, which was commissioned by the Kronos Quartet for amplified string quartet and recordings processed from shofar recordings.
Wow.
And in that one, the melody Eliyahu Hanavi makes quite an appearance at one point after this sort of transmogrification into heaven. The performers hum that melody as well as playing it. And I became so utterly obsessed by it that I shortly thereafter had a residency at Brahms' house in Baden-Baden with this huge picture of Brahms staring down at me all the time. And I composed high variations on Eliyahu Hanavi, a set, of course, of 18 variations. I've also been very drawn to a number of poets that deal with Jewish themes. And my Songs of War and Peace, which is a setting of 4 wonderful poems by Israeli poets in outstanding American translations. And one of them is by Azriel Kaufman, and it's called And How My Brother Is Cain, and it's about the assassination of Rabin. So I'm drawn to these sort of in many different guises, as you can see from the kind of range that I've been describing. One of the text settings that I found most moving was one that I did fairly recently. I set 3 poems by Abraham Sutzkever in the original Yiddish for bass singer, clarinet, cello, and piano. I've also done a version now with baritone. And I just found these poems incredibly meaningful. And they're Holocaust poems, and they are dark, but shot through with such extraordinary imagery. And I dedicated that one to my father and my paternal grandparents, whose first language, as I mentioned, was Yiddish.
Is your approach to a Jewish text or a Jewish theme different from your approach to other types of compositions? Is there a sound that we could say, ah, that's a Jewish piece?
I don't really know how to answer that. Of course, in the music that has identifiable elements such as shofar or a tune that people would know, it's very overt. So things kind of weave in and out in greater and lesser degrees of identity, maybe. But certainly because of my background, there is a strong element of that.
Let's turn our attention now to Hark My Love, which is the piece that we had programmed. And I believe it was commissioned by
Judith Klurman. Actually, no, it wasn't commissioned per se. I'm trying to remember. I think she did ask me to compose it and she did premiere it.
But you chose the text?
I chose the text. I was very drawn to Marvin Pope's beautiful translation of the Song of Songs and to these verses in particular. This piece is dedicated to my husband, Michael Kabovi, and he is also has been wonderfully engaged in especially my Hebrew settings, as he's a native Hebrew speaker. I just was drawn to the beauty of this text and to the kind of, people talk about the metaphorical meanings, but there's also the Hark My Love is also certainly about love.
Sure.
And so I wanted to find a way to set it that has the kind of springy joy that the text suggested to me. One of the things I love about text setting, and I do all kinds, is finding ways that music can kind of partner with the words, that it can amplify something about the words and their meaning.
Well, it is a joyous piece, and there is a lot of text painting going
Yes.
on in that, the leaping and the jumping and the joy. I love the piece.
Thank you so much.
Let's go back now to, again, the subject of our investigation of women in Jewish music. Your career, did you ever encounter any challenges as a woman? Were there obstacles that you had to overcome because of your gender? Was it difficult to be taken seriously as a composer?
I'm laughing because yes, it was all along the way. I think to some degree still is. So just to share a few kinds of things, let's see. Someone who will remain nameless, when I was looking for a job in academia, suggested I should try for a junior women's college. as an appropriate venue. I can remember serving on committees where music that looked like it was in a female hand was just passed over. When I was a fellow at the Tanglewood Music Festival, and on one of my first days there, someone asked me what I did, and I said I was a composer, and the answer was, "Ooh, a lady composer! Like what is that thing?" There have been many, many instances along the way. However, there have also been some wonderful counterbalances to that. I feel like a number of the people that I worked with along the way were very supportive, and I'm a person of determination, so I always just kept plowing ahead.
So a few minutes ago, you talked about if a score was submitted with a woman's handwriting or something that looked like a woman's handwriting. So here's a loaded question. Do you think that there is a woman's voice? Is there something about a composition that you would say a woman wrote that? And I understand there's this, I don't know, should we say a dialectic between wanting to be a total equality, gender equality, and yet wanting to have a unique voice.
So here's what I think about that one, and I've thought about it a lot. No, you can't tell. Morton Feldman does beautiful, incredibly quiet music. If you didn't know, you might, make a link between the traditional idea of quiet, etc., being female. I will tell you a funny story that happened to me. My piano concerto, Passion of Saint Cecilia, the second movement is very tender. The first and third, the first one is called combative. The third one is angry. And it's violent. It is radically violent. So I met a conductor who had heard the piece, and he looked at me and he said, "That music, you?" And so there was this a bit of a shock that if you don't present a certain way, and then people hear music that has a great emotional range, violence, there's an assumption made about gender, which reminds me of an experience I had. I went to a lecture by Hina Stara once, and I had never seen a picture of him. And his music is wild and wonderful. And he looked like a banker. And I had a bit of that same kind of experience. So, but I don't think that one can essentialize. There may be music that that has been constrained in some ways to certain kinds of patterning that maybe you could build an argument. But I think we have individual voices, and what I am in favor of, at least for myself, is being able to have a very wide range of emotion in my music. I don't want it to be curtailed, and I do want it to be experienced by others as I experience it by myself. I guess I'm thinking that music can have a sympathetic resonance in others in terms of experience.
It's like reading fiction. One of the reasons it's so wonderful is we can enter somebody else's head by doing that, and it's a very expanding experience. Did you ever sing in a choir?
I did.
Yeah, tell us
I
about
loved
it.
it. So my first choral experience was in junior high school when I lived in South Orange, New Jersey. And we had a special choir, and it met before school at 7:15 in the morning.
Ooh, you were dedicated.
And we all just loved it. It was a wonderful experience. I also sang in chorus in college. I really enjoyed all of those experiences very much. And I've loved choral music. There's just something about the combination of the vividness of melodic interaction with text. I love singing it, and I love creating it.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add, Judith?
No, I just want to thank you for your work to bring this music to light, and for all the other amazing conducting that you do. And to say again that to me, one of the real joys is collaborating, the give and take with performers and the sort of manifesting in the world. I am not someone who is content to imagine in my head. I love the actual experience of bringing things to life. And the final aspect of that is to share them with others, with the performers and listeners.
Well, let's hope that soon we'll be able to get back to being in the community of musicians and
I,
community of musicians and audience. Thank you again so much for your time, and I wish you all the best and good health.
Same to you. Thank you so very much.
Okay,
Take care.
bye.